You're expecting.
We were really excited when we found out that we were expecting. And I had been through like tons of pregnancy tests and
She bought like a whole
online
big bag
value
online.
thing. So
You know,
I
buy one, get 100
had been
free.
going through pregnancy tests, so whenever we got positive pregnancy tests, I took like 3. I was really, I was so excited. We were excited.
Yeah.
Israel's gonna be a great big brother. He already loves just other little babies, and
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. How are you? I should be back in video soon. I am definitely getting better. I remember last week how I said to you, like, you needed to pay attention to what the Duggars do in the coming weeks with this new docuseries coming out. And I said, pay attention to what the kids post, pay attention to any articles. Maybe I didn't say that. Pay attention to stuff that might be featured on tabloids from anonymous sources, because this might give you an indication of what Jim Bob is thinking. Jim Bob Duggar is the kind of guy that when confronted will never actually deal with criticism publicly. He will only go to a place where it's safe, where he'll look good. He's never going to go to an outlet where he would actually be forced to justify or answer to or respond to criticism or claims against him or the IBLP. And this new docuseries is going to be pretty damning, because you're going to hear from Jill Duggar Dillard, Derek Dillard, Amy Duggar King, and his Jim Bob's sister Deanna all talk about their experiences with the family and on the show. You're going to hear about, you know, their interview that they did with Megyn Kelly. You're going to hear about the pressure that Jill was under. You're going to hear about the lack of money. You're going to hear about the way that they discipline their children in their homes. And it's not going to paint the family favorably. I think most people that already know about the Duggars will not be surprised by anything that's revealed in this documentary, especially if you followed the story in the last several years. If you followed the story in the last several years, at least since Josh's recent conviction, you also know that Jim Bob, through anonymous sources, in my opinion, has been feeding stories to various outlets, specifically narratives run about Anna Duggar and about her feelings, and running around talking about like girls that have spoken out being the bad ones and Anna being the good one, that kind of stuff. TLC is going to be front and center in this new docuseries, and this criticism about TLC is going to come down to them platforming this group, the Institute in Basic Life Principles, and whether or not they actually knew about Josh Duggar. And then on top of that, TLC not paying the kids and not having contracts with the children for payment, and instead of paying the kids, paying a production company for Jim Bob, where Jim Bob was then tasked to pay the kids, and the network really having nothing to do with the kids. So TLC is going to be facing a lot of questions about, why are you allowing adults to be on a show, using them for content, making money off of them, making money off their births, making money off their weddings? Why don't you have contracts with that person, not Jim Bob? Why aren't you paying them directly? It's very confusing. TLC is the network. The production company that made Counting On and 19 Kids and Counting was actually Figure 8 Films, and the payments from the network could have been to the network paying Figure 8 Films to the network paying Jim Bob, or they could have been paying the family directly. I don't know how they ended up doing this, but the payment with the family going to one person is how most of these networks can find loopholes so that they don't have to pay the kids directly and deal with like child labor permits. It's really gross, in my opinion. Jim Bob has now, through an anonymous source, in my opinion, and I'm just doing this based off the years I've covered the Duggars, I can't say for certain, but this is my professional opinion, that a crew member is running to the tabloids to tell their side of the story, to defend Jim Bob, to throw Michelle under the bus, and to claim that nobody else in the family is like Josh, and Josh is just a one-off. And the reason why I think this is Jim Bob is because these are all of Jim Bob's talking points. So let's dive into this topic of Jim Bob, through an anonymous source, is throwing his family under the bus. Let's dive into it. Before we do, can you please do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down below. Make sure to click on the bell so you can get notified of any time I go live and new content loads. Make sure to leave a comment if you have something to say, and share this video with your friends. Okay, the new article says that 19 Kids and Counting crew member tells all about what it was really like to film the disgraced reality family, and why Michelle, not Jim Bob, was the one calling the shots. First of all, I call BS. A crew member has literally never spoken to the tabloids, like literally ever. And we don't know like how long they worked with them. We don't know what role they had. We don't know if they were a camera person, if they were a producer. We know nothing about who this supposed like crew member is, okay? And they spoke with them anonymously about his experiences with Jim Bob and Michelle. And the way that it is started out in this article, they're already setting the stage that this crew member is going to be dismantling the narrative that Jim Bob is the one that's in control, that Jim Bob's the one calling the shots, and that the problems in the family are Jim Bob. Because it says the series, Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets, put out June 2nd on Prime Video, portrays the Duggars in less than flattering light. The trailer likens Jim Bob to a cult leader, acting in accordance with the IBLP's credo, which sees men's positions as head of the house as the natural order. So first of all, this crew member, by the way, isn't living in this family's home, isn't seeing everything that's going on in their lives, isn't there for all the hard conversations, doesn't know the dynamics, wasn't there in the years before that they were on TV, and certainly is going to see the Duggars in their best light, because the Duggars will, when they're around others, be on their performance. So they're going to be on their best behavior. And Jim Bob, in front of others, he is not a very good public speaker. Michelle is much more outspoken and much more like extroverted than Jim Bob is. And so he relies on people that have better public speaking skills to do a lot of his work. That's why Jim Bob relied on Josh and relies on Jed and relied on his wife. But he's still calling the shots. This crew member claims that they didn't want to interview them for the docuseries. So they said, this is actually why they didn't want to interview me for the docuseries. They kept asking me a lot of questions like, what did they do? Did they like sneak in and like do weird stuff? No, not really. They were actually really nice. The producers of the show said that like TLC did not decline to be a part of this documentary. I don't get the sense that they would just cut a crew member that wouldn't paint the picture positively for the Duggars, because honestly, they were going to allow anyone that had an opportunity to speak. And if this person was supposedly going to be on the show, perhaps they were not allowed to be on the show because what the producers felt was them not being honest. I don't know. The source said that the Jim Bob and Michelle were nothing but gracious and hospitable, of course. I mean, why wouldn't they be? They're making money. They fed us. They always made sure that we felt comfortable around the house. They made sure that the kids weren't bothering us. They made sure their kids were really polite to us. If at any time we weren't comfortable with anything, they checked with us and made sure that we were taken care of. I feel the family's attentions were always really positive. Now, this person claims that the docuseries is getting everything wrong about Jim Bob. So we're not supposed to listen to Amy, his daughter. We're supposed to ignore what's in Ginger's book about her dad. We're supposed to ignore anything that Jill says, because they claim that Jim Bob isn't authoritarian. How would they know? This is what they said. This is the weird thing. Michelle is actually in charge of the situation. She's actually running the family. even though it's like a patriarchal family. If you spend time with this family, you realize Michelle is actually making a lot of decisions. Well, let's see. Because Jim Bob's working, maybe he's not around. Maybe it seems like Michelle's making the decisions because she's the one with the kids. But when it comes to the contracts, Michelle is not the one that's brought up. When it comes to the issues with the verbal abuse and the manipulation and verbal and like the how the show was run and how his kids were paid, it's not Michelle being criticized, it's Jim Bob. So this is why I'm calling BS on this person. They said Jim Bob is a little bit goofy and Michelle is the one that kind of makes sure things are actually functional. Well, maybe because her husband's a dingbat, I don't know. Maybe she's the only one that has a brain, I don't know. But they say they're pretty careful about how they behave. I think Jim Bob is like the loud American, and then Michelle is the one who kind of like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that. So now Jim Bob is the loud American. That's what? Like disrespectful. And then Michelle's like the one that's saying we shouldn't do that because maybe her husband's behavior is out of line. They also claim that respecting other people's is a central theme for them. So like, because they go to other countries, they're not going to disrespect other people. It doesn't make any sense. Part of this article that really makes me feel like this is one of Jim Bob's people that's been sent to the tabloids to defend him is because the crew member is saying that Josh is not representative of the other Duggar children, as though this crew member knows every detail about their lives, as though this crew member can say confidently that Josh is an outlier, when we have no clue about that. We don't know that. And that's Jim's argument all the time, that Josh is an outlier. So they said, I think the family was trying to educate him to make him better, but I think Josh just has his own demons and he has to deal with it. So a child doing things to his sisters is a demon? And his parents not reporting it to the police, not getting the daughter's help, not actually getting Josh help from a licensed therapist. Okay, Jim Bob. And they said, I see Josh as like almost a separate entity. His younger brothers and everyone else they're great. They're all nice guys. They're respectful. Of course, they have their teachings that I don't agree with at all. But in terms of just not being a SO, they're not that. Josh shouldn't taint the rest of the boys in his behavior of being an SO for the rest of the family. How does a crew member have any clue what's going on in the private lives of these men off camera? How can they confidently, and I'm not saying by any means that the boys are, but how can you confidently say that about someone? I mean, years ago, people said the same thing about Josh, and we already know what this cult teaches, and we've already seen how Jim Bob treats his wife. So again, I'm calling BS. So we're just supposed to ignore all the information that we know about the situation with Josh's arrest, with the situation with the investigation from 2006. We're supposed to ignore that the sons are all in the IBLP still. They're married to women that they can't stop impregnating. Like, Jim Bob has 30 grandkids now. And yes, there are new grandkids. Joy Duggar just put out a brand new video about her birth, and guess who showed up in the video? Jim Bob, looking like the doting grandpa. I told you they're going to put out like as much propaganda as possible. And if you're wondering if Joy has broken free, the answer is no. She's still very involved in her family. If you want the truth, this person is more than likely, if they're a crew member. Now, that's a big if. If they're a crew member, they're someone that doesn't know all of the details and is listening to what Jim Bob tells them and believes it hook, line, and sinker. And then because they've had experiences with Michelle having direct the kids and be around the kids, that she's the one that calls the shot. But they're going to ignore the experiences of the women that lived in the family. Like Ginger, who in her book calls her dad controlling and talks about him being overbearing and trying to dictate her life into her adulthood, into her marriage. And then so easily to just sum up what Josh did as, well, it's his own fault. It's his problems. I mean, I agree. Once Josh became an adult, he made the choices that he made. But his parents had an opportunity and a responsibility to manage him and not ship him off to the IBLP to take care of him, or ship him to live with Bobby and Jim Holt, or ship him to other people that have problems, that do bad things to kids, or just get him married so that they don't have to deal with him anymore. Let's also point out the obvious elephant in the room that this source is coming from the Duggar family. they've shared multiple photos in this article that say courtesy of the Duggar family. Photographs that have never been made public, photographs that no one has ever seen before, and it's behind the scenes photos of the Duggar kids on camera with the crew. And so we're just supposed to believe that this crew member, who's not featured in these pictures, is the one that is talking to the tabloids, when literally it says courtesy of the Duggar family. Jim Bob, you are so obvious. They didn't want to take care of the issues with Josh because they wanted to be famous and they wanted money. Jim Bob, in my opinion, is an authoritarian, and we shouldn't discount what the girls have said publicly about their father and say that they're lying, because this crew member is trying to pander to Jim Bob. And why would they do that? Well, one, they worked for Jim Bob. Two, they represented the network through the production company. So it doesn't paint TLC favorably either. So of course the network's going to want to try to look like they did everything possible, that everyone's lying about everything, and that the Duggars are great people. Everyone that knows the Duggars will literally tell you that in the public sphere, and even in Ginger's book, she talks about the performance that their family puts on for people, where they already are almost always acting when they're around other people, playing a part, behaving correctly, doing the best that they can to live the idyllic IBLP life, following the rules like robots. So of course, strangers that meet them or people that work in their home in a work environment are going to see the best side of someone. I think it's odd that this person wouldn't be asked about the girls. So what do they say about the girls? Is Jill saying that she wasn't paid? Is that true? They don't answer that. They don't say anything about the payment. They don't address any of the issues the girls raise. Instead, this crew member is deflecting and blame shifting and saying that it's really Michelle that calls the shots. So who benefits from that? Jim. Who was it that when Jim Bob was dealing with Josh's stuff, went before the church and his friends and accused Michelle of the one of causing Josh's problems? Allegedly. Who did that? Jim Bob. Who blamed Michelle for dating and kissing other men and having problems with self-pleasure as that being the reason that Josh was the way he was? Allegedly. Jim Bob. So Jim Bob will always throw the bus under someone else. So Michelle is now supposed to be the scapegoat as the one that did all the bad things, not Jim Bob. How much do you think this crew member got paid by the Daily Mail or by Jim Bob to make this interview? Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.